last year in 2015, I went in for a routine mammogram, which since I was 27, I'd had a mammogram every year. I'd have a colonoscopy every 5 years. I had my gynecologic visits every year. I never missed. I knew for me it was important that I never miss a checkup. Preventative care was number one on my list. I could be the poster child for early detection, and that was my main focus, was if I was going to get it again, I wanted to catch it early. I went in for a routine mammogram. They called me back the next day and asked if I could come back for a more in-depth mammogram. I did that, and when I did that, I knew something was up, because they don't usually call you back for those. It was about a week later that they said they suspected something and that I needed to come in for a biopsy. So I went in for a biopsy. They did that. They said that it was breast cancer and that I needed to talk to a surgeon. So we spoke to one of the surgeons there, and at this time, this was my fourth cancer, because with the ovarian cancer, they found stage 1 uterine cancer at the same time. Since they were taking everything out, that took care of that, and with the chemo. But so that was my third cancer, was the ovarian and uterine, and then this time was breast cancer. So it was number 4. I knew that something was wrong. They had checked me each time for the genetic tumor markers that you can pass on to your children, and I didn't have them. But I knew that at age 51, something was not right. I knew that it's not normal for somebody to have that many different kinds of cancer. So I wasn't comfortable when my surgeon said that it wasn't a problem and she could just do a mastectomy and call it good. And I thought, no, there's something else. So I had a friend who went to University of Utah Huntsman Cancer Institute for her breast cancer, and I called her and I talked to her, and she said, get up here to Utah. And so we did. We came up, had my initial visits with Dr. Cindy Matson, who is amazing. She explained very thoroughly what I could expect, what she was going to do, the different stages of breast cancer. Not only is there 1, 2, 3, 4 stages of breast cancer, there's grades inside that. And then there's also kind of a scale that anything from, like, I believe 1 to 15 is, or 1 to 29, 1 to 29 is not very aggressive. Anything higher than 29 is aggressive. And mine was a 31. So after the mastectomy, I met with my oncologist, Dr. Kong, and he said 4 rounds of chemo. He felt comfortable with that. The tumor board met and decided that would be good. They also are really big on genetic testing for these types of cancers, and I knew that this is where I needed to get, or where I could find the answers that I needed. And so in between all the tests and all the things like that, we were able to do the genetic testing for Lynch syndrome. And I sat down with the genetic counselor and I told him about my mother's cancer and blah, 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 uncles and my aunt and this and that and the other on my mother's side. And he said, wow. He said, I think you have Lynch syndrome, but we will test. So they tested across the board for any genetic abnormality, and it came back positive that I had Lynch syndrome. And then they recommended that my sisters, that my mom, and that my daughters all be tested for Lynch syndrome. And at the same time I was going through the breast cancer, I was actually on my way home from the surgery. My sister called, and she had had a routine colonoscopy and had colon cancer. Hers was a stage 2, I believe. And so I told her, you've got to get tested for Lynch syndrome. You've got to do this, because she has 3 daughters as well. She was positive for Lynch syndrome. My mother was positive for Lynch syndrome. My dad was negative because he had had a little bit of colon cancer, so they wanted to test him as well. He was negative, so it was definitely coming from my mother's side of the family. With the breast cancer, you need to be aware of your breasts. Do your self-examinations every month, get your mammogram every year. Be aware of any abnormalities in your breasts, dimples, swelling, leaking fluid of any sort, heaviness, odd shape, not being symmetrical, completely symmetrical, those types of things. Just be aware of fibroids, what your breasts feel like, and know the difference between a fibroid and a lump. They feel very different. Educate yourself. You know, when you go in for a mammogram, ask them to show you the pictures, what they think looks normal. You know, look for it on the x-ray and feel it so that you know what it feels like. And that will help you get to know what is normal, what feels normal and what does not feel normal. So.